Thank you for joining the January 16th VOLTHA TST call, and I am recording this session so it can be posted later to the VOLTHA playlist. So just to notice everyone that we are recording today's meeting. All right, so I think the first couple things I wanted to do were just some cleanup related to 1.2 to see where things were. So the first one, VOL 590, that was relating to bumping the ONOS apps to the correct release versions for 1.2. And Kim, I do see it looks like this one is closed out now. And so that one is complete.
Yes, so that one's up there, and you know, on the VOLTHA, the 1.2 branch, and there was a last minute bug fixed in the ONU adapter, that the Broadcom ONU adapter that got put into there.
Okay.
As well, I think that was VOL 590, I believe 592. Yeah, that was in there. That's on the branch and master both. So as far as I know, I don't think there's anything else that needs to go in there for the release. So I think it's ready to tag, unless anybody has anything else.
Anything else from the community? All right, I'm not hearing anything, so I think we are in good shape. So thank you for that update, Kim.
Yeah.
And then the other one is documentation. I know there's been some progress on the subtasks for that larger JIRA issue. 552. But last I checked, there were still some open. So I wanted to take a look here. And we currently, and who do we have on the call? Okay, so we still have a section on the VOLTHA installer and on XPON config and on the adapter. And then on, hi Sean, on the compatibility matrix. So there are a few items still outstanding on this for the release notes before we can provide those as a final version. But Sean, I'm not quite sure when you joined the call, but it looks like we are ready to tag 1.2.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, I think we can move forward with that, and then hopefully these will get wrapped up quickly on the release note side so we can formally have a copy of that as well. So we still have the draft as the status on the wiki.
Okay, so I probably will tag the owner of a few adapters and then make sure they provide, if the adapter is still working, what's the information they should provide to be included in the section 8. Okay, the text 8. Okay, so I will send out I'll reach out to some of you. Do we know where the PONSEM is still working, or it's broken right now as we know? Chip?
I didn't hear anybody mentioning about PONSEM being broken.
I think there was something about.
I think it's working. I have tested recently. There is no problem. Okay.
Because I thought that one time there was something didn't work correctly for the PONSEM. Okay, so that's good. Just want to make sure we keep maintaining it.
Okay, thank you. And then the next thing I wanted to cover, so I think that wraps it up on 1.2 discussion today, unless there's any remaining comments from the group. Okay, if not, then we will go ahead and move on. And there was a new item, new in terms of we haven't assessed it yet for proper release. And so that's VOL 593. Edge core OLT reactivation fails after reboot via CLI. And so this is a fairly new issue here, and I wanted to check with the group on which release we should target for this item. We want to try and do this. It's a medium priority right now for the defect. We want the medium one to go into 1.3, or should this, I think it'd be good to try and get this in 1.3 if we can. Sean, do you have any of you as product owner or anyone else on the call? Or anyone on the adapter side care to comment?
I have just looked into the issue. I'm not aware of it, probably. Kim, want to say something?
Okay.
Yeah, there may be some of these reconciliation things that were done post VOLTA 1.1 may address some of that. Rich, were you aware of anything? This was part of the coverage for one of the resolved issues, I think.
Yes, it was related to VOL 503, implement reboot operation. So it may have come up in that context for testing.
Yeah, there may have been some reconciliation. Now I have to go through the list of things that were fixed between 1.1 and 1.2 and see if something was covered on that. So
yeah, exactly. So I think it's better we take a look at this and come back.
Okay, so Kim, I'll just tag you on this if that's okay.
All right.
It's resolved in 1.2.
Okay, Kim, is it possible this one can be verified sooner than later?
Yes.
Yeah, because there's some activities going on right now, so I just want to make sure the 1.2. So potentially it's 1.1 issue, and then we want to make sure 1.2 fix that.
Okay, yeah, I'll coordinate with Garish on that and see if we can't get an answer here, an observation anyway, to see if it can reconfirm it.
Great, thanks.
Okay. All right, and then I think that was it for the new issues on JIRA for discussion today. And then next, we'll go into looking at 1.3, but actually let me take a quick check here. Is anyone else aware of new tickets that have opened that need to be discussed on this call? I think that was it for what I had seen. Okay, then let me go ahead and go back to the VOLTA board in JIRA, and we can start looking at 1.3 Sprint 1. So I have a couple things to cover there. First, we need to do some high-level discussion about epics and user stories, what's there, what needs input into JIRA at this point. And then a reminder that a week from yesterday, so next Monday, is the planned kickoff for Sprint 1. So if I go over right now, what we had done initially, it was just move over the adapter issues that did not get resolved in 1.2, and we brought those into Sprint 1. And then I did see that we have some folks now actively bringing up specific items into Sprint 1 for 1.3 as we talked about last week, so thank you for that. So we have 569 is one that was moved up here, and that's related to the Kubernetes support. And so that is now in Sprint 1. And then below that, we have the adapter issues that were carried over from previously. Is there a comment? Okay, I thought I heard someone trying to speak. All right, so we have this list that's being carried over. Is there any reassignment of issues that needs to happen? I know some were being worked by CalSoft previously. Do we need to change ownership of any of them?
If there's CalSoft ownership, of a JIRA right now, it should be moved. Yes. Is there any?
Okay. Let's see.
Yeah, it's gonna Julie. It's gonna have to be moved. Clearly, it has to be moved, and somebody else has to pick it up. But I'm not sure.
That was my question. I think is I'm not sure who I should move them to.
If no one's going to step up, mark it unassigned, and move it out of the sprint, and someone's got to pick it up, or it doesn't get in the sprint.
Right. So, Kim, maybe you and we should talk to Shad, see whether he can take a lead on this one. I was under the impression he worked with CalSoft more closely. So let's approach Shad first before we move this out. Kim, what do you think?
Yeah, I think we should talk about that because there's a significant amount of work in there, and somebody's got to has to pick it up.
Right. So I believe all these functions under the device manager, right?
Yes.
Right. That was under the Vault 248 Epic. Yeah.
Okay.
Device management functions. Right. Yeah.
So let me write down so I don't forget. I forget things. So I'll send out an email and then I'll CC you, and potentially let's have a call with Shad.
Yep.
Sorry, so the device manager, okay?
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Sean. So maybe for next Tuesday, hopefully we can have a decision on how to move forward here. So we'll see what you hear from Shad when you talk to him. So thank you for that. And then I think the next items really to talk about are actually, let's see, let me check the top of the backlog. Okay, so I think the next items talk about are kind of following up from last week's lockdown. So we know that we have planned in scope the Kubernetes work, the migration to Kubernetes, and those stories are starting to be pulled into Sprint 1. So I think we're off to a good start there. If there are others that need to be pulled into the Sprint, then that's great. We can start moving those up as you're aware of ones that you can either contact me or do it yourself for those of you who have permissions. And then we have the OpenOMCI implementation. So there were framework discussions and some service provisioning scenarios and things discussed during the lockdown last week. And the plan was to cover OpenOMCI in 1.3 as well. So I think from some of the discussions we had that for Sprint 1, there may be some of the more fundamental epics and user stories that could be created and brought into JIRA for Sprint 1. But I think there are more framework discussions required, some more detailed discussions, with the community. So we'll need to line up follow-up discussions as appropriate. But I believe there may be a little bit that can be tackled in Sprint 1. So Chip or others, what are your thoughts there?
For Sprint 1, I could probably get some initial JIRAs put together and set up, and maybe I'm not sure if I can get a code review to start with, since Sprint 1 starts next Monday, and then I'll be out on vacation all next week.
Right.
So I definitely want to try to at least get some lined up, and if anything, maybe get a initial code review just during the week. I won't be able to address any issues, but make sure that people have plenty of time to look at it.
Okay.
So we might want to keep the scope sort of small.
That's what I was thinking. I think Sprint 1 is going to have to stay fairly small on the scope because there's still a lot to be agreed and discussed amongst the community. Okay.
So, Chip, you mentioned initial code review is the code review of what is in there today.
Well, it's just it's the ME frame and the OMCI communication channel.
Okay.
So that could sort of form a basis, and we might want to adapt it to basically the proper style that people want. You know, so not take it as is, but that's to move it over into the extensions directory.
Okay, and I believe during the lockdown, even though we didn't go into the detail of the ME frame, do you think we need to go into the detail of the discussion again? Julie, I'm just wondering what we can use the time on this Thursday before Chip going off on vacation. So, do you think we should spend some time to go over through that, Chip? And then, do you think this Thursday will be too soon? That's my question.
It might be, but if people had specific questions, maybe I could probably put a page together on the wiki of usage, and people can look at. But to have people look at it and then have a good, valuable discussion on Thursday might be sort of pushing it.
Okay.
But at least we can get it started. So.
So Sean, I think it'll be tentative right now in terms of whether or not that would be Thursday.
Okay.
Sounds like there's a chance. I had some other ideas for Thursday as well, but we'll talk about that in, let's see. We can actually go ahead and talk about that now also. So one of them is, I think, related to further input that was requested from the service providers, and that was for the third item that was being considered for addition into 1.3, and that was to close up gaps between what's supported by the Edge Core for functionality today by the Edge Core adapter and the FPGA implementations. So there was a list that had been presented, I think, by you at the lockdown, and there was some background work that needed to take place first, which was cleaning up what is still an issue out of that list, because there was some thought that some of those may have been addressed by 1.2. And then also providing for the remaining items that would be on the list after that first scrub, what I think there was a need for more detail around what the test cases were so that they could properly put together, or properly address the issue, properly scope it out for what was being requested and what needed to be changed. So sort of a two-step process. I thought that might be something that could be, if some homework can be done before Thursday, could maybe be discussed with the group on Thursday as well. Kim, were you going to make a comment?
Yeah, and I was just wanting to find out where that list is, if it got posted somewhere, if Sean sent it out. It'd be important to go over that, because when I saw the list and it was showing gaps between EdgeCore and FPGA, there were clearly things on the list that would have affected all adapters and all OLT implementations, regardless if it was EdgeCore or not. And so that stuff has to be filtered through, as which of those things does VOLTHA not have capability for? Of course, FPGA-based OLTs, right, with, previous, legacy implementation, right? There's some ways to go in, by an out-of-band channel directly to, to the OLT and cause it to do some things. But we have to, pull that stuff out and find out, what belongs in VOLTA, and find those VOLTA gaps, and then, match them up with, basically get the FPGA implementations and the edge core implementation on level playing field, so we can see what really needs to go in there. So it would really help to have that list, and I don't know, it might have been in a recording somewhere, but it would be nice, if the pages can get put on the wiki or something so we can see.
Yes. I can put that list up, and I actually, if I get the original owner of the list agree, then I will actually issue the spreadsheet. So
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me for that. So I have converted all the recording to the so I'm going to listen to them, make sure they're in good shape, and then we can post it. But I'll work on this list today. So I think, Julie, your suggestion regarding on Thursday, I think Tim can step in to host that call. So I think that'll be time well, time, how to say that. That'll be a good way to spend the time.
Okay, and I do see that Tim is on the call today. Tim, would you be able to cover the call on Thursday?
Yes, I can.
Great, thank you very much. So I think that will be our plan then for Thursday. So Sean, I suspect this may take the full hour. If there is remaining time, did you want to try and cover something on OpenOMCI as well, or just stick with the list of the adapter issues?
I think if Chip is able to put some information on the wiki, and that will carry over some, allow the community to study while next week while he's gone.
Okay.
Then I think that would be I think that should be sufficient.
Okay. All right. So Chip, I think you're off the hook for any sort of presentation on Thursday.
Okay, thanks.
There's never an easy vacation. Just remember that.
Okay.
So would it be possible to get just the, just those? Sean, you mentioned going back and getting the spreadsheet. Is it possible just to get the PowerPoint or whatever with those slides that were shown at it was late in the day on Thursday, at the very end. You kind of went over it.
Yeah, I think what I'm going to do just make sure the information in the agenda, because that's part of the agenda, or I have a PowerPoint for lockdown discussion, so I'll just post that. I think let me clean it up. That will probably also include attendee information. So I think that would be good information to share. I'll do that before noon today.
Okay. Okay. So so this Thursday, 1/18. I'll clean this up later. And then I think the following week, Chip, you're out of the office, and so we would not be going over, I think, too much on the OpenOMCI that following week. So the 23rd and the 25th. And so 25th would be the following Thursday. And then the one after that would be the OMCI, which may be getting a little late. We may need to pull some of the info into, let's see, about halfway through the first sprint, Thursday the 1st. Okay, so those are kind of our Thursdays coming up. So, we can move some of these future ones around as needed, but I wanted to get an idea for other topics, and we don't need to necessarily assign them to the dates yet. But I think maybe on, so 2 weeks out from Thursday might be a good time for the Open OMCI for further discussions to see where we are at that point. Sean?
Okay.
Chip, Kim, any thoughts?
Yeah,
Do you think we'll have reasonable progress at that point for some discussion?
I think so. I can also probably, when I put some stuff up, I can do some, since most of the ONU device adapters deal with OMCI the exact same way, I can maybe do like a little bit of sample code of how to make use of some of the communication channel or the framework before there is an overall framework. And maybe if people have time, which nobody usually does, but they could at least it would be out there. Maybe it would help someone who wants like the TNW to do a mid upload. I could, that would be something of value. I think that if someone had an hour to spend.
Okay, and then Sean or anyone else in the community, are there topics that do you think need to be kind of reviewed in a deep dive session with the group next week, as we're kind of just starting off the first sprint for 1.3?
Right now, I may have one potential topic to talk about, but I do want to go over that with some community members. So potential if we'll I think we'll let people know by this Thursday.
Okay. All right, that sounds good. So we'll have this one kind of tentatively reserved. We may have a topic lined up, but still kind of firming that up with the community first. With the Sean's talking to the specific folks about that. Okay. Then I think that kind of gets us a good overview of at least, or some time dedicated to 2 of the larger items that we have kind of scoped in for 1.3. And then the Kubernetes work is ongoing as well. And if we need to do a deep dive at some point on that, on the security side and on Kubernetes, we can do that. Let's see. Let me go back to the VOLTHA board now.
And also, just Kim and David, do we need to again reminding people which branch to enter? I mean, to update regarding to the code contribution, all that kind of stuff?
In theory, though, after we cut the release, it should be the master branch people should be using.
Yeah, that's right. We're past the freeze point that the maintenance branch, or the for 1.2, right? That was created there last week, and certain things cherry picked over there. So as it is of right now, the master branch is containing what should be 1.3. And I think just yesterday or this morning, I just put a commit in there that marks the version number in VOLTHA, that says it's 1.3, right? Marching towards 1.3. So I don't think we have to do anything here at this point, Sean. I just think when it comes time to sort of code freeze 1.3 again, we just need to be a little bit clearer on, where changes are supposed to go. But as of right now, master's fine. People can put changes for the next release onto VOLTHA master.
Okay. And also, am I still not clear whether the VOLTHA require its own repo?
Required is a strong term.
Prefer.
Yes, I think my opinion is, I prefer that VOLTHA its own repo, and it actually is already. I think part of it is pulling it out of the cord manifest file so that you don't have to use the repo tool. You can just use git clone and you're done. So I think that's the key. I mean, as I said, it already is its own repo. It just needs to be pulled out of the cord manifest file.
Okay, so maybe at some point, since for some of my at least me, and then potential other people is going to be involved with this. Maybe some kind of tutorial regarding to like you said, the repo manifest, all that kind of terminology and functions. We probably do. I wonder whether I can, for AT&T, I'll request a tutorial session on that one. If David, if you don't mind going through that. So we can also use the Thursday call going to have some kind of tutorial.
Okay.
I think that would be helpful for the community also, right? Or everybody in the community already know how to do that.
So Sean, it's Manuel. I agree. This would be, I think, important, at least from my perspective. Yeah, that we appreciate it.
Yeah. So, so potentially, David, on Thursday we will ask you to do that next Thursday also. Would that be okay?
Okay.
And I'll try to be specific, see what we're looking for.
Okay.
To be on mute.
Am I? It shows me off of mute. Can you not hear me?
Oh, it was delayed. Sorry.
Okay. No, we have a big delay between our two desks on when we hear it on the audio bridge. Okay. So, Sean, I wanted to circle back a little bit for kind of the prep for what you'll be looking at Thursday as well, or leading up to Thursday, is we do have a number of adapter issues that are in the backlog. And so if you could take a look at those as well to kind of see if, in some cases, there may be some issues that are already in the backlog that would just need to be pulled up to support that request list. We need to figure out which of the items on your list already have stories and which ones need to be added in. And if there are others that need to be pulled up in priority as well, you could take a look at that. But I think your list is really the one we're working off of at this point.
And is that true? We also have some epic regarding to the ONU adapter, right? See
if I can pull that up here.
Like, for example, 182. I mean, yeah, it was on a.
It was not in the. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Like I think reboot ONU, retrieve ONU alarm. I think the.
Okay. Let me go back.
Just go to backlog.
182.
Yeah, that's a story. It's a VOLTHA ONU adapter.
Yes. And let me go back over here.
Right.
Pulling up VOLTHA ONU adapter. Yeah. Here it is.
So what I'm saying is, we not only already allocate some of the edge core adapter into the 1.3, they are ONU adapter also.
Right. So if there are ones that need to be targeted for sprint 1, if we want to look at what could be covered in sprint 1 and pulled up by people, then we'd need to bring those. If we don't have any resources to assign to them at this point, then I think what we could at least do is do a prioritization of them within the backlog to pull the most critical items up to the top of the backlog, so we have that ordered appropriately.
Yeah, and I think we also have to get clarified what does that Volta ONU adapter EPIC really mean? Is that applying only to Edge Core, or is it all ONU adapters in general? Because this is kind of one thing, and I think I harped on it a little bit at the TST lockdown, but there is a lot of functionality that Volta has to have that are common across all ONU adapters and OLT adapters, and to put this all in the bin of, I know Edge Core, the Edge Core hardware is the white box OCP type OLT, but and it is at a disadvantage because it doesn't have a lot of existing infrastructure already on it. But I think we need to look at some of these things in context of working ONU and OLT adapters for, I think, Sean, what you're calling the FPGA based ones. That's kind of a bad term because there could be OLTs that are using similar chipsets, besides they're using the same Qumran Maple chipsets that are not in the category of FPGA. So I think as from a higher level, we have to look at that. If we implement it in one place, it should really work for all, right?
Yeah.
Unless we're going to just consider, this Volta ONU adapter, it's just Edge Core and whatever, Edge Core is, wants to work with, and that'll be it. But it does kind of tie into, what is the support matrix, right? What ONUs are going to be on the other end of the OLT, and that's somewhat of a complicated, question. What has to be out there, and if it's open OMCI is related in this or not, that work and such. So that kind of brings up a little bit of a wide scoping statement. But if we don't be careful here, we could just lump an extreme amount of Volta functionality, all dependent on getting it to work with the ONU or OLT, the Edge Core OLT, which is kind of the hardest one to, put new functionality in at the moment.
Right. I think what is happening, at least before this is what I observed, right? So we have right now 2 open or available ONU adapter. One is the ONU adapter provided by Sienna initially based on the Broadcom eval ONU. The other one is also a Atran ONU adapter. Again, thanks Atran for publishing that. I believe the community mostly are working the Broadcom side, and the Atran side, basically they're self-contained in their way. I think the vendor-specific ONU just make sure they provide those information, the activity. So far we have not seen the EPIC or user story provided on the Atran ONU to request the community to work on the Atran ONU adapter, right? So I think Atran ONU adapter is Atran's contribution, and in the open source point of view. So at least for the community to jointly to work on the ONU adapter, I think right now is the Broadcom ONU adapter, and I think we're hoping to get more and more involvement from the community to make sure though that adapter be updated and it support the functionality, and of course, if the ATRAN ONU, I'm just using ATRAN as an example. If ATRAN ONU requests the community to help to update the ONU adapter, allow the functionality, if it's not already there, the epic will come up and the user story will come up and then people will work on it. But so far, as far as I know, there's no user story specific on the ATRAN ONU site. I'm sorry, I used a long sentence, long paragraph to describe what I observed. But I think the ONU adapter right now we are looking at is a Broadcom, based on the Broadcom reference design, and then I think that applied to the TNW and the Alpha network. Potentially there are others, but I think that's the focus at this point. Is that correct? Kim, does that am I?
Yeah, that I think I agree with your statement there. And one thing I should point out is that that we talked a lot at the lockdown about where Chip had presented what they what the ADTRAN ONU adapter was doing and how it was recently refactored, and I think there's a lot of if you compare those adapters, ONU adapters side by side, there's a lot of merit in the direction that ADTRAN has taken with that adapter, and we have a real advantage there because it's an open adapter. People can see it and see what's going on in there, and there looks like there's a potential that the ADTRAN adapter, especially as more stuff gets put into it, with the open OMCI framework that Chip had proposed, that it might become even a better reference adapter than the long-term Broadcom ONU adapter that we looked at. So, but and that's just the nature of all. When the stuff's in public, if your eye gets caught by something that looks a little bit better, you tend to look at that and see if it can be exploited. So that kind of is part of the equation, and then maybe making sure that there's some other stories that may tie towards adapter interoperability, so that ONU adapter can work with EdgeCore OLT. I'm talking about the ADTRAN adapter, right? Because if there's community work and there has to be focused effort, there's a lot of what is really where should the community effort go into. So it's not a thing that has a real clear answer. I don't think.
No, I think it's I think it is a good thing. We have at least 2 ONU adapter. We can compare. We can see the common. Hopefully, the more we introduce, that we can simplify the content of the adapter and then use it and get it more and more library or open OMCI type of approach to reduce the complexity of the ONU adapter. I think Chip is. Are you trying to say something, or Sean? Anyway, so no, I think it's a good thing, and I really appreciate people working on this, and hopefully someday, even with if ADTRAN requests the community to help on their adapters, the community will lend a hand to work on their adapter also.
Yeah, one thing that you could probably do is when I looked at doing the ADTRAN ONU adapter, I pretty much started with the Broadcom as a base. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I wanted to do is split it into several files instead of one giant 2,000 line file for multiple people to work on. So, the same thing could be done with the Broadcom is look what I did and then figure out what's best for the Broadcom to split it apart. So basically refactor the way the community wants an ONU adapter done based on what I did, but adjust it because I do things certain ways and other people might not want to do that, and make the Broadcom adapter like the common one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sort of improve on what I did or do it differently.
Yeah, potentially, I think what we can do also, we can discuss what would be the better framework or better at least file management for the ONU adapter or OT adapter too. So I think that's the evolution path we would like to take. So whatever is common, we can put it, make it a common, right? So no, I think that's a good approach.
Okay, I think that's pretty much for what we had planned for today. We've got a little over 10 minutes left if we need the time. So Sean, Sean Ying, I think you have some homework for Thursday. And, and then also we'll let folks know that Tim will be hosting Thursday's call. So we will have a meeting on Thursday. I'll add it to the CORD calendar. And then, oh, Sean, yes?
Yeah. So right now we still have the H-core adapter call on Wednesdays. Shall we cancel it or keep it there for a little? Just make sure we have the placeholder for a little while. Or I think we already pretty much determined Tuesday and Thursday is the way forward.
I thought that's what we had discussed.
Right.
Was just sticking with the Tuesday, Thursday. So we need to talk to an admin at ONF to remove the Wednesday call. I don't think I have permissions to do it. So I think if we want that one canceled, then we need to get some assistance in removing it from the calendar.
David, since you worked there for a long time, who has can Julie, what does our Scrum Master need to do in order to be able to manipulate that that calendar?
It depends on who set the meeting up, right? So I can cancel ones that I have set up, but there are other ones that were set up by ONF, basically.
And maybe
ON Labs, and
maybe that one's Tim created.
Yeah, I can't remember, but I'd have to. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I don't know
guess
if I have permission now to do anything about it.
You can always talk to Luca or someone like that, and they can figure it out. There's also a tool they were using, Robin.com, for allowing people to manipulate the calendar.
Yeah. That's what I have to go in.
Yeah, if you don't have permission to delete it, I talk to Luca at this point, and either that or the new community manager, and have them manipulate it.
Okay. So I guess, Sean, I have a question then. You talked about, do we want to keep it as a placeholder in case we need it, or do we want to kind of formally have it removed off the calendar now?
I think
for Wednesday's calls.
I think because we have been trying to introduce VOLTHA to other people, right? So when they look at the calendar, I guess we can only mention the VOLTHA TSD. I tend to like to hog, so but let's remove it. I think we have enough. I don't want people keep thinking they need to attend that one, so let's remove that. Also, Julie, one additional item I would like to do is for the community here. So Telefonica submitted their VOLTHA for the GPON with the Celestica. Will be, if we can, would that be the interest of the community to invite Telefonica to the maybe one of the meeting, and then we can have discussion with them and have some Q&A exchange, just to make sure those code will not be missed in any sort of form. And maybe if that's not part of 1.2, we can commit to include them into 1.3. What is the I don't want the service provider, they feel like they contribute that have not been taken in. So
have they submitted a patch for it? What do you mean they've contributed it?
they submitted the whole thing. I don't know whether they include the VOLTA or just adapter. So that's something I has anybody?
I mean, yeah, if they wanted to include it, all they have to do is like submit a patch and for the Git review, right? So I'm confused.
Yeah, I looked at that yesterday, kind of, as a follow-up to the discussion last week, and it appears that we need to go back to Daniel, the guy that submitted that, because it looked like there was another subdirectory that kept source files from colliding with each other, like an adapters directory and an extension. So I'm not really sure that how that patch was constructed. It was almost like private code and not really a common stuff.
That's my concern.
And it was, and the private code was changing the base PMC adapter, and then there was, changes actually to the VOLTA core that needed to be, discussed probably. So it was. I had concerns about how that was actually put. Whether that was really intended to take and replace what it was trying to update or not. So did anybody else look at that? Chip, I think this is the one that you had some comments on and advised Telefonica to submit a patch. I think maybe even Sienna looked at it and advised that the patch be redone, but then I think it even needs to be redone again if it's to come into the the VOLTA core. And then there's also those there was changes that need to be evaluated to make sure that the rest of VOLTA works if those changes from that Telefonica test bed are actually taken into the core of VOLTA. So that was my concern with that.
So did you guys review? See the release note come with the submission? Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah, the release notes were good. I mean, there was a lot of detail in there, and it sort of showed what was working. But I don't know if there was much consideration at all for the changes to intend to operate with other adapters. In other words, I don't know if there was a lot of considerations for not breaking other things rather than just trying to, because when you're focused like that, you're just trying to get a certain adapter to work with a certain, ONU and OLT, and there was a lot of changes in there. And there was a clone, again, another clone of that Broadcom driver that had an extensive number of kind of specific patches for that particular, match of hardware, that PMC controller that was being used, which looks like that's not really common code, it's implementation specific. So it's almost like the whole thing kind of has to be reevaluated. Like, if that is to go into VOLTA like that, is what about the touches to the common parts? And it puts in yet another copy kind of the Broadcom ONU adapter to make it work. So maybe it's not even named appropriately. There's just a lot of considerations like that caught my eye on it. So we probably need to find out what the urgency, to get it in, and get, maybe get the developers on that to kind of work with the the other people that are, you know, in the community that are testing things to make sure these are, you know, going in right, and they have JIRAs to explain why they made the changes in the common components the way they did and such. It's just not really clear what was intended for some of that.
Yep. Okay. So I think that's potential another deep dive session utilizing the Thursday calls too. So, okay. Thanks.
Okay, and we are almost out of time, so we'll probably wrap up here. So we still have, like we mentioned early on, we've got a couple of the sections for the release notes that still remain to be done. Hopefully that will be wrapped up soon. 1.2 has been tagged, so that is done, and thank you for getting that work done. Much appreciated.
Clarify, Julie.
Yes.
Ben Brandt.
Oh.
I didn't tag it yet.
You didn't tag? That's right. Sorry. Okay.
I
My
will
fault.
tag it after here this morning, and I'll put something on VOLTHA Discuss that said that had been done.
Yeah, you're right. Branch was created.
Right.
Thank you. Okay. All right. So that will be tagged hopefully later today. And then we still have some work to do, I think, on the, during this week on getting epics and user stories into JIRA to scope out the work for Sprint 1 in particular. And so if module owners and folks could take a look at stories that are in the backlog that need to be pulled up to Sprint 1 because we have resources that can work on them, that would be much appreciated. And then we'll talk about the content again when we meet next Tuesday also. Meanwhile, on Thursday, there will be some focus on kind of fleshing out the details that Sean had presented in terms of a request for coverage of specific items related to the edge core adapter, and it may be larger beyond just the edge core as well. So there's some cleanup work that'll happen in the meantime between now and then that call will be hosted by Tim. And I think we're out of time, so thank you everyone, and I'll go ahead and stop the recording for today. And this will be posted again later to the VOLTHA playlist.